Ah, well, good morning, everyone. You all look lovely today, I'm sure. Uh, I mean, there's only so much I can presume from this end of the camera. But yeah, I bet you guys are looking pretty well and doing well this Thursday morning. So, welcome to Daily Devotions through Redeeming Life Fellowship. If you haven't figured it out, my name's Dan. It says so right there. I'm a teaching pastor here at Redeeming Life Fellowship, and I'm excited that we get a chance to read through John chapter 18, verses 39. Hello. John chapter 18, verses 19 through 40, which is a continuation of this dark cloud that's hovering over the narrative where Jesus gives his life, beginning with his arrest in Gethsemane and to his trial under Annas and Caiaphas, leading to his trial under Pilate. And things are just, it seems as if at each of these stages, the narrative of what's happening just keeps turning from bad to worse. And like yesterday, as we mentioned, it's important that we can see that the hand of God that is moving these events, that is present in these sorts of things, that prophecy is still being fulfilled, so that we would never think merely of this event as a miscarriage of justice, but that God is actually accomplishing his purposes through Jesus, even through the hands of these wicked men, as we will also eventually see and read about later in the testimony of the apostles in Acts, which is we'll be going through next in a matter of a few weeks. So stay tuned for that, of course. But here's one of the interesting things about this. Let me just mention a few things. One of them being is that if you could summarize one of the reasons why, or maybe a central reason or motivation that the chief priests and the Pharisees and Sanhedrin is carrying out such a rash and rushed, expedited miscarriage of justice, it is out of envy that they do these things, because they could not stand that Jesus could actually be greater than them. It's a reminder of how John said in a few chapters previous, how there were people even within the Jewish leaders who followed Jesus, who believed in him, but would not confess anything publicly because they loved praise from men more than they loved praise from God. And that they do these sorts of things because their hearts are held captive to envy. And then stands the question, why on earth, if it's because of envy that the Jewish leaders hand Jesus over to Pilate, why does Pilate carry out the sentence that he does? And if you could summarize it into one word, it is cowardice. He was the one who was afraid of the mob, afraid of the sort of influence that the Jewish leaders had, who could start a revolt that would make Pilate look bad, like a bad procurator who can't actually maintain order in a land that he's been assigned to maintain order in, and that he would lose his position, his rank and his honor before the Caesar, and that he would be afraid not of what to do, but afraid of what was going to happen to him, and that he capitulates to the pressure of the crowd and the clamorings of the people to just give them what they want. And it's a small sacrifice in his mind to be able to just give them this Jesus of Nazareth if it's just enough to keep the peace. So yeah, it is envy on the one hand with the Jewish leaders that they hand him over to Pilate, and it's by cowardice that Pilate hands Jesus over to be crucified. And it's just as a free nugget, the when I think about courage, or rather cowardice, as being the sin of Pilate, it's interesting because we don't oftentimes think about cowardice as being a sin, even though it is one. Because think about what C.S. Lewis says in the Screwtape Letters, where he says that that courage is not simply one of the virtues, but it's the form of every virtue at its testing point. That honesty, mercy, justice that yields to danger will be only honest, chaste, or merciful, or just on conditions. And he follows this up and says, Pontius Pilate was merciful until things became risky. Then he capitulates to his cowardice. And it's an important thing for us to remember that God is concerned with the things that we do, even when we capitulate to our cowardice because we're afraid of what's going to happen to us. And God, we have to be able to entrust our lives to Him, even through to the things that are going to happen to us, which is of no guarantee. But our lives belong to God from the beginning. And if Jesus so willingly gives his life in the way that he does here, we have to be willing to offer our lives for him because of what it is that he's done for us. And I want us to think about this through as we're reading this passage, and that is, how is it that a man like Jesus gets sentenced to death, to crucifixion, in what ways do these leaders, these people have authority, power, and influence, skirt around the law, twist the law, evade responsibility, have these strategic maneuvers to massage the situation or get out from under the weight of responsibility to be able to carry out something that is of reckless miscarriage of justice as this one. Look at what they're doing and see if whether or not we are the sort of people who, when our hearts are held captive to envy, or when we are slaves to our own cowardice, that we will find ways to get around Jesus in order to make ourselves as great and powerful and lovely as we are, or to escape an undesirable outcome on the one hand. But let's read. And it says, John chapter 18, verses 19 through 40. And it says this: Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus and his disciples and his teaching. I have spoken openly to the world, Jesus replied. I always taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews came together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said. When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby struck him in the face. Is this the way you answer the high priest? He demanded. If I said something wrong, Jesus replied, testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me? Then Annas sent him, still bound, to Caiaphas, the high priest. So Jesus is being accused of a flippant remark in court, even though what it is that he said was the truth. And even then, even there, they realize that it's not a question of anyone who has any kind of knowledge, because everyone has heard the things that he said. And there's nothing that's hidden from them or from their knowledge. And even still in this case, no one is willing to be able to offer corroborating evidence against Jesus to say that there's something that he's done that's worthy of death. And even still, Jesus is punished, who's rebuked for what they perceive as flippancy. But let's continue. Verse 25. As Simon Peter stood warming himself, he was asked, "You are not one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it, saying, "I am not." One of the high priests, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. "Didn't I see you with him in the olive grove?" Again Peter denied it, and at that moment a rooster began to crow. Then the Jews led Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, the Jews did not enter the palace. They wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." Isn't it interesting how the chief priests are dodging responsibility, or that they're trying to trick Caiaphas into presuming guilt before he's been tried? It's, in other words, they've already determined that he's guilty, and they don't want Pilate to do any serious searching about who Jesus is or what other things that he's been done. They just want him to take the chief priests at their word, to trust their word and not verify anything. And here's what's about to happen. Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. But we have no right to execute anyone," which was true. The Jews objected. This happened so that the words Jesus had spoken, indicating the kind of death he was going to die, would be fulfilled. That is, about being lifted up. In other words, crucified. That sort of thing would happen in order to the prophecy about the death that he was going to die, and to remember that by him being lifted up, that God would draw all men unto him, and that God would be glorified through this. All of this is happening, even in the midst of Jesus being handed over from the chief priests to Pilate. Well, let's continue. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" In other words, he wants Pilate to look at the evidence for himself and to see, by your own judgment, would you look at me and the things that I've said and the things that I'm doing and think that I was the king of the Jews? Is this the kind of judgment that you would lay down if you weren't just told by somebody else the accusations that are levied against me? And that's an important thing because, well, frankly, I think a lot of us assume a lot of things about Jesus because of what we've heard of him from other people. But we need to heed Jesus's words from Pilate, not to presume things about Jesus, but to actually look and hear about what it is that he has to say. And to not dismiss Jesus or to misjudge him because we weren't listening to him, or because we were just listening to what somebody else had to say about him, and then write him off because we weren't listening. We have no excuse for something like that. And even here, the issue is being pressed against Pilate to make a decision for himself based upon the evidence, for the truth to prevail in order to be able, the truth has to prevail in order for justice to prevail. And he carries on. "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "It was your people and your chief priests who handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" He's pleading ignorance. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You are right in saying that I'm a king. In fact, for this reason, I was born And for this reason I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." Isn't that a profound statement? Jesus says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And then now here says that everyone on the side of truth listens to me. And that he is appealing to something that, as a procurator, as a judge, that Pilate should listen to, that in order for him to be a just and prudent judge, he has to be able to be on the side of truth. The truth, which is what it is, regardless of whether or not he likes it or not. And what does Pilate say? What is truth? Isn't it interesting how it can be easy for us to not wrestle with or deal with the truth, but rather avoid confronting the truth by questioning whether or not it is the truth. We can soften the blow or the claim that truth has on us by relativizing the truth and saying, I'm not going to deal with absolute truth, and as long as I can make it relative, I can escape the truth and how it affects my life and my decisions and my judgments in the sight of God. And each of us, when we're faced with a proposition like Jesus says, everyone on the side of truth listens to me, it can be very easy for us to be able to take that, to relativize it, and to be able to say, because we claim we don't know what truth is, then we don't have to deal with it. And with this, Pilate leaves and tries to absolve himself of responsibility and get out from under this predicament that where the Jews are trying to press him on the horns of a very uncomfortable altar. But I digress. Let's finish. It says this, verse 38, "What is truth?" Pilate asked. With this he went out again to the Jews and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him, but it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in a rebellion. It's my encouragement to you for us to be able to not think ourselves any less human than the chief priests or even of Pilate, who typically do these things so that we can either be away with Jesus or not have to deal with his claims upon our lives. Because we too are held captive to envy. We too succumb to cowardice. And neither of those are excuses before God. And it's our prayer that on the one hand, our hearts would be humble before God in order to be able to see who Jesus is and to love him well by submitting to him. And on the other hand, to not succumb to cowardice, but to be concerned with the things that God has called us to do and to trust him with the results. By doing so that we can trust him with our very lives. And that's captures, I think, well, something of the essence of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. So with that, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, you can check out our podcasts and opportunities to support us financially through the links below for this church plant here in Whitley County. And I pray that each and every one of us would read well these passages so that we can see how it is that Jesus really has given his life. It wasn't taken from him. It was given by God for us as an expression of his love, his unmatched, unmistakable, steadfast love, and offers it as a gift of his grace towards you and for me, even here, even now, under this cloud of darkness of the crucifixion. So, God bless you, take care, and I look forward to seeing you next time.